morning. I'm blessed to be joined by Rabbi Robert Haas, Congregation Mikveh Israel, Pastor Billy Hester, Asbury Memorial United Methodist Church, Pastor Lalita Hickman, Trinity Baptist Church, Imam Ibrahim Abdul Malik, Majid Jihad, Bishop Thomas Sills, Connors Temple Baptist Church, and Pastor Charles Robeson, the lead chaplain of the Savannah Police Department. We are now at day 109 in Savannah's COVID-19 journey. Despite our best local efforts, we find ourselves almost as bad as we were recently at our second single highest day since this journey begun. The weather is seasonable, visitors are in our city, and we all are seeing more people but less social distancing. We're seeing more visitors but less face coverings. We are seeing more fun but less caution, and our numbers are reflecting this disturbing trend. However, in spite of all of that, I'm excited to introduce today's Savannah Faith, Savannah's faith-based partnership, which represents the intersection of the city of Savannah and our very vibrant, very diverse faith community. This is a mutually beneficial partnership as we recognize that there is a connection between the soul and the body in which the soul resides. It makes sense for us to work together, and so a seat at Savannah's table was created intentionally for the faith community. Our Savannah Faith Initiative currently has over 100 local members of the faith community: bishops, imams, ministers, pastors, rabbis, and temple leaders. We have met on 3 occasions virtually, and as our group grows, it is gratifying to see the collegial respect and admiration that these clergy leaders have for each other. And even more interesting to me, how many of these faith leaders who serve in the same city who do not know each other. Whether we are Baptist, Methodist, Jewish, Muslim, Catholic, Unitarian, Universalist, Episcopal, Baha'i, Presbyterian, non-denominational, Church of God in Christ, United House of Prayer, or the Apostolic Faith, we have 2 important things in common. One, we love Savannah. And secondly, and most importantly, we believe unequivocally that in spite of what we have faced, what we are facing now, or what we will face in the future, that God continues to love and bless Savannah. Our community witnessed the collective strength of Savannah Faith during these demonstrations of over 2 weeks ago, when these faith leaders showed up almost 100 strong and infiltrated the crowd, bringing a peace, a calm, some balance to a potentially volatile equation. When the story of Savannah's peaceful demonstration is told for the history books, the active and the engaged involvement of Savannah's faith community will be cited as one of the reasons that Savannah fared better than many other cities in this country. When I issued my first executive order, Savannah began to close our businesses, our churches, our synagogues, mosques, and temples. But keep in mind that these same churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples had some important decisions to make, particularly since they were not subject to any governmental order to close. All of Savannah's houses of faith made the difficult but wise decision to close, and that brings up the purpose of today's press conference. From the Savannah Faith Collaborative, 5 of our clergy leaders were chosen to comprise a task force to develop guidelines for faith-based institutions when and if they choose to reopen in the near future. I will tell you that they met, they researched, they debated, and they have a set of recommendations that were presented to our faith leaders earlier this week. I really want to give our gratitude also to Dr. Lawton Davis of the Coastal Health District, who was instrumental in the development of these recommendations. So that being said, I ask Rabbi Robert Haas to come and begin the presentation of our report.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. It is an honor for us to be part of this task force, and we appreciate everything you are doing for this community. We know there are a lot of things going on, and it takes a lot of time and effort and patience, and you've done so much. So we appreciate it, and thank you to everybody else for joining us. It's been a difficult time for many of us, and a trying time for most of us, but the faith community has come together in ways that I have never seen before. I've spoken with other people who have been here a lot longer who say the same thing, that we've come together as never before in the history of the city. And we had 3 Zoom meetings with a lot of ministers, pastors, fathers, and so forth. I'm not sure how many were on each one, but at least over 50 on each one. The committee met several times, including with Dr. Davis, who was very helpful. So we used these 3 Zoom meetings, our meetings, and recommendations from the CDC to give the recommendations for the city, and I don't think they will surprise anyone. It's a recommendation of this task force that houses of worship remain closed for worship services at this moment in time. As we know, the CDC still recommends this, as houses of worship are considered hotspots. And we also have to remember that even if we do decide to open, what are the results going to be? We talked quite a bit about the fact that if you open up, you have to test everybody's temperature, make sure everybody has a mask, make sure that bathrooms are cleaned after every use, make sure there's plenty of hand sanitizer, ensure that there's no singing, because if you sing, you have to be 30 feet apart, ensure that people are spaced. If someone starts coughing in the middle of the service, what are you supposed to do? If people who come in are elderly or people who are otherwise compromised, do you allow them in? The issues raised for inviting people to come in are so vast that we couldn't come to the decision that it was time to reopen. We recommend we wait until there's a vaccine that becomes available, or that there is a drastic plummet in the number of cases in our area, and we'll use the CDC for that recommendation. The recommendations are on this list. It was really quite amazing on the Zoom call. We had 3 of them. I'd say probably 75 houses of worship overall, maybe more. And every single one was united in their belief that we needed to wait. We understand the difficulties it causes houses of worship, but we also understand that we need to put health first. And we're here spiritually to assist everyone in the way that best suits our community. We know there are so many ways technologically to assist, whether it's Zoom, YouTube, Facebook, or some other platform. We continue to invite people to call and to find other ways to assist everyone in their community. Now, even though we do recommend that houses of worship remain closed for worship services, we understand that different houses of worship may want to open up anyway, and so we also provided a list of over 30 suggestions if you did decide to open up. That included, of course, the basics, wearing masks, having hand washing stations, and so forth, but included quite a number of other options, including maybe having outdoor services, inviting people to immediately leave after services, as opposed to what we call, and this I think is the mayor's personal word, schmoozing, so that we want to make sure that people find a way to worship if they go into a building that is as safe as possible. But we also want to say this. All of us have been using new technologies for our services, and they have been working very well, and each of us and our congregations are getting better and better at them. We want to recognize the fact that this technology gives us options we never had before. We are reaching people from their homes who can just come and watch our service. Many of these people could never come before because they were ill. Some of them live far away now. Some of them simply didn't want to, but now they turn on the TV or the computer and they have worship services in a way that connects us. We ask that houses of worship seek new ways to create these connections. There's so much technology out there. We invite you to ask other houses of worship. We're all copying what each other do. And if you have difficulties financially with some of this technology, we ask that you seek help and let us see if there may be a way to help you with those technologies, not only for the money, but also the training. The list is right here, and we'll certainly have it available to anyone. And if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to ask us or the mayor. And again, I want to thank all of you. I've been in the city for 8 years, and as my good friend Billy Hester has mentioned, who's been here a lot longer, and I'll reiterate, we've never seen this type of unification before. Houses of worship are coming together like we've never seen, and I'm not talking 10 or 20, I'm talking over 100 easily, for a variety of reasons, whether it's social justice groups or protection from COVID-19 or to protest. And we're doing it in an amazing way because all of these congregations that are coming together represent a vast range of political and religious views, from all the way from one side to the other. And yet we come together united for certain purposes as opposed to come together to argue over certain ideas. We're coming together to help the health of our city and to recommend that we need to stay safe. So thank you very much. And on behalf of the entire committee, Mayor Johnson mentioned everyone's names. We thank you for your time and all of your efforts.
Thank you, Rabbi Haas, and again, we appreciate the time that these very busy faith leaders have put into working these recommendations. And again, I will tell you, they did not come about easily. We wanted to make sure that we were able to put into view everyone's religious practices, hence the diversity that you see. And I'm just really pleased and honored that they were able to work together from this. And if we're able to work together on these things, there are many other things we can continue to work on. So I thank these sons and daughters of Abraham, so to speak, for being able to come together in times just as this. And we find that what unites us is greater than what divides us. So if there are members of the clergy and you are interested in being a part of Savannah Faith Initiative, you can contact my office at 912-651-6444, 912-651-6444, or you can send an email indicating your interest to egregory@savannahga.gov, egregory@savannahga.gov. And I take special pleasure, and as I always say, may God bless you, and we know that God will continue to bless the city of Savannah. That ends our prepared comments, and again, I don't know if any of you have anything you want to add, but they're all available for questions as you have them. And Ben will be last. Sean will be last, as usual. Emma is usually first.
Good morning, Mr.
Good morning.
Mayor. Would you say that, like you were all talking about, with all these places of worship coming together during this time, that this is one of the silver linings of the pandemic in our area?
Oh, absolutely. I've said before that crisis creates opportunity. Crisis also creates creativity. So if you go over, you can see drive-through services at Pastor Robeson's church. I've seen Pastor Sills, they created this thing, this kind of wood pulpit. It's sitting out there right now. And then you look up and the great part about it is that we're able now, as Rabbi Haas said, you can watch a worship service in real time, but you also watch it later at a time that's convenient to you. I might have to work. I might just be getting in from work. So you have an opportunity to pause it, stop it, go back to it. And so I think what's happened is our citizens have begun to see the length and breadth of our religious community, and to be able to do it on their own time and in their own pace. Now, some of our houses of faith have been quicker to it than others, but the other gratifying thing I've seen in this is that I've seen other houses of faith saying, hey, let us help you to get this up to speed. And again, I think that's just kind of what Savannah Strong is all about Savannah Love. And being able to say, you know what, we're not in competition. I can help you be better, and it doesn't affect me by helping you be better. So again, it's important, particularly these days, that people walk the walk they talk about. And from these leaders, these leaders of faith, I've seen them exemplify the things that they're preaching and they're teaching about.
And this might be more of a question for you all, but do you believe that once we get through this pandemic, that the way that we worship could change moving forward because of the creative ways that you've had to move around the traditional meeting in your place of worship?
I'm going to ask Pastor Hickman to answer that, and then Pastor Imam Ibrahim, and then Pastor Hester.
I would say absolutely. There will never be the old normal again. I think we will be.
Yeah, Lord, yeah, you come over here. Yeah, I'm going to help you.
All right. I think there will be several new normals going forward, and one of them will be that we will continue with our online services, I do believe. Our older members particularly are thoroughly enjoying these services. I think everything will change inside and outside the churches and the places of worship.
Well, we get them all in. I mean, I think, because I think different perspectives need to be heard. So.
Greetings all. What the expectation that we have is that we will continue to live stream and do telecommunication for those individuals in our congregations who do not have the technical skill, the older folk in our community, but to have them to have the availability to at least hear and have the communication line. And when COVID struck, prior to this, we simply recorded our services. But after the COVID struck and the mandate was put forward, then we said to our community that we have to continue to embrace the technology. So we have no intent to do anything other than continue to embrace the technology in every way that we can.
One of the great surprises we've discovered is that many of our members who've had to move away from Savannah have now rejoined us. It's been exciting. And so we chat before the services, and people are reconnecting, and even after the service, and even have a Zoom coffee hour after the service. One of these people is a young man who grew up in our congregation who is serving in the military in Kuwait. So he's experiencing, not only that, we got him to be part of one of the services. So he even was part of the service from Kuwait. This is exciting. So we have to, you're right, we're going to have to keep doing this in some way.
I think one of the ways that has helped us during this pandemic has caused all of us to become creative, to also not just offer virtual services, but also it has challenged us to really meet the needs of our community. And so churches have now fed first responders and giving away groceries. So I think what it has done and what it continue to do after this pandemic is to wake up our churches a little bit more, to be more active in our community. We're reaching more people. I don't see before the pandemic 1,500, 2,000 people in our worship service, but we see it online. So our congregation has grown overnight, but it has definitely woken us up to the reality is that we have to do more. And I think even though this pandemic is a bad thing, at the same time, some good can come out of this.
And I want to mention that also that several of our houses of faith also hosted COVID-19 testing. And so again, this is another great intersection of government and the faith community working together. Obviously, they're in the neighborhoods, they're where people are. These people have magnificent platforms. People trust them, and so we've been able to get a lot of people tested because of them.
Thank you all so much. This is my last question. I know that the recommendation is to have places of worship remain closed for now, and that there are recommendations while they decide to open. Just remember, what is the general consensus here in Savannah? Are most places staying closed? Do you know of any that are opening?
I think the general consensus is no one is really planning to open. If they are, they're very, very few under very, very limited conditions. I think the other thing that struck me was during our last Zoom call, one of the ministers was speaking, and she was saying that the work that was required for her to open for a smaller group of people was actually more work intensive for her just not to have it at all, because there was just so much cleaning, so much sanitation, so much social distancing in place that in the end it really wasn't worth it for them to continue in that way. So again, we just wanted to make sure that these faith leaders have the benefit of the experience and the collective research of these great leaders that are beside me. And again, in the end, they have to do as they're led to do, but we can't never say that, you know, we didn't give offer some guidance and recommendations.
Mr. Mayor, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. So this is kind of a question for everybody. Obviously, there's a lot of innovation going on, but I'm wondering, are any of the members of your congregation, have they struggled with this? Because I know that a lot of people go to houses of worship because their leaders is having a crisis, and there's a lot going on right now. So I don't know if any of you can kind of share your
Well, Pastor, you want to show? Pastor, yeah, please. Anybody? Anybody want to join in?
One of the biggest challenges with this, of course, is people who don't either understand technology or have the equipment. So we have a little task force at our church trying to work on this. It's not the majority of our congregation, but we don't want to leave anybody out, so we're trying to do that. It's challenging because everybody, somebody might have the equipment but might not know how to work it, so it's trying to figure out how to educate them. But then some, we may need to help financially to get them the equipment. So that is part of the issue. But again, creativity, got to do that. I think many of us, you know, who had graduating seniors this year struggled with how to help them, and we ended up having a car parade, and it just blew them away. It was one of the most powerful things our church has ever done in the 30 years I've been there. You know, it's funny, you tell kids how important church is and you wonder if it really connects with them. This connected with these kids who were so down and out to see all of these people passing them and honking their horns. So again, we do have an opportunity to make a difference, but it is challenging with not leaving anybody out.
One more question is just on the financial front. I know that, you know, obviously gathering in person is how you collect donations and how you survive. So is there kind of an alternate way that you're, you know, getting that financial support?
For us and our congregants, we have moved to Cash App and Push Pay and, you know, put it in the mail, drop it by the church. Financially, we've absolutely been fine during the midst of this pandemic, but we have reached out to more electronic giving in the midst of all of this.
And then I think there are also various applications. I know Givelify is one of them. There are also faith-based giving programs that you can go on and you pick an organization and you can go in and directly contribute to them as well.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
My first question is for you, Mr. Mayor. So you have this protocol if congregations do wish to reopen. Is that something that the city or anyone is going to be kind of monitoring to see if they're following these guidelines?
No. Who be it for us to be involved in matters of faith at that level? Again, I said I think at our first meeting that our faith community, they're CEOs. They run literally business corporations, and their board of directors of the congregations and their CEO is the one that sent them. And so I would dare not put the city in the middle of that. We just want to make sure that they have the right information if they choose to do it. And we want to make sure that their congregants know, again, that they're, you know, I mean, my church or my synagogue, my temple, my mosque might be open, doesn't mean I have to go. So we want to make sure, again, people are armed with that right information. And then if they go there, they get to know the things they need to look for. We know that recently here in our community, we've had a situation where a house of faith opened up and had to close right back. So again, you know, we just want to be extra careful. We want to err on the side of caution.
I'm guessing, you know, this conversation isn't over. Can I talk about your just your continued conversation both with Dr. Davis and this task force, just moving forward, monitoring the cases locally?
Well, I think we're stuck together. I'm not letting them go. and they're not going to let me go. I will tell you, I think it's the collective prayers of not only the folks to my left and right, but those of our faith community that sustained us during this time. I believe that prayer works, and I believe that the prayers have sustained our city. To that end, our partnership works. So that's hence why we branded it Savannah Faith. We'll be meeting regularly and occasionally, because I think when you build a relationship, you don't just meet when things are wrong. And so we want to involve them in things happening in our city. We'll be having some of them acting on various task force that the city will be doing going forward. Again, when you create a city to the table, the seat is there. And so we're linked whether they like it or not.
We love it.
Right.
My last question is for all of you guys. As we're adapting to this new normal, can I talk about your experience with trying to connect to people virtually? Is that harder than face-to-face? Just what has your experience been with that, as there's been so many current issues in our country right now?
Well, I think obviously it is more difficult for all of us. We're used to preaching or speaking to a crowd, and you kind of get a vibe when you're speaking to them. It's kind of nice. I know when I first did my virtual service, everybody was calling in and says you have to have a pause after you tell a joke because you're running right over the joke. So it's something that we have to adapt to. Obviously, I would imagine all of us feel the same way. We would prefer to be in a room with everyone. We'd prefer to shake hands and hug and have lunch together and all the things that we used to do, but obviously we can't do it. So even though we would prefer it, I would imagine we're all improving every week on what we're doing now. We're better able to understand how to use all of these different sites. We're better able to understand what our congregants can and cannot do. For instance, we were doing a lot of our stuff on Facebook, which we thought would be one of the better ways to do it. We're finding a lot of people aren't on Facebook, and so now we had to switch over to YouTube, which is apparently very easy for people to get onto. So it's an experimentation process, but I think we're doing the best we can in this situation. And again, we are looking at the bright side, even though we understand it's a very difficult one. But you can only do what you can do, and we're doing everything possible. And I think what we're also doing, which cannot be forgotten, is we're making calls. We're calling people over and over again to check to see how are you doing, what do you need. Not just us, but each of us is having people from our congregation do it so that people remain connected. And this, of course, is most essential for those who are here alone and don't have family. So it's a give and take process, and I think it's working very well. We found a lot of things that work very well, and as I mentioned before, we prefer to go back as soon as possible. I don't believe this is the new normal. I think we're in a gray area as the new normal will come once this is all over and we see what kind of balance we have. But I imagine that every one of us is going to continue to virtually stream, continually use all of this technology, even while people can come back into the congregation.
Could I get you to repeat the question?
I just wanted to know your experience, trying to connect with your congregation virtually when you're used to being able to speak with them face to face.
Yes, there have been challenges, of course, and a part of the challenge is everyone wants to do what we normally would do as a part of our practice. So invariably, whenever you talk to someone, you always want to know when you're going to reopen, when we're going to be able to do what we normally do. That said, the embracing of the technology, as I mentioned before, is a blessing, to put it lightly. We've had the chance to stream now for about 6 or 7 weeks, and the streaming has been so effective that one of our members of our community who's in Senegal tunes in weekly to hear what we have to say. And she's there teaching, but invariably every week she tunes in to hear what the message is for us locally. So there's some blessings, there's some bitterness, and there's some sweetness about it. Thank you.
Actually, our experience has been similar. My most difficult situation is with my young people, who you would think would be so much excited about the technology. but not for the purpose of having worship service most of the time. Our older people are dialing in a half hour early to make sure that they're there, but the younger people are having some difficulty coming to the phone or to YouTube to worship together. So we're looking for some creativity in order to get them to log in more regularly.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm Miss Church. But my question is, I know that there's a race for the vaccine. So we are going to wait, is that the consensus that we're going to wait for the vaccine without having a date? No?
Well, I think the consensus of the committee was a vaccine is preferable, but there has to be a dramatic turnaround in our infections. There has to be not only a leveling off, but a decrease in which it's deemed safe to open. And so we'll have those continued conversations. I know that today, right now, we're not there. The cases are going up. And so I think in terms of these faith-based institutions and the city of Savannah, I think we agree a phased approach is best. But right now, again, we're not there today.
And I guess with the tithes and offerings not being what they used to be, of course, the bills are not either because you're not turning on the lights on.
Right. Right.
So that's it.
Mr. Mayor, just one question for me. Everything else has been covered very well. Thank you. With the resources, I know it was mentioned that one of the churches has a task force that is looking into connecting people with technology who might not have access to it, including potential financial resources, things like that. That contact number that you listed toward the end of your remarks, is that a good number to reach out to if people want to start something like that up? I mean, to maybe create a pool, if you will, of a task force of resources?
Well, that was the number to the mayor's office. So again, once someone, if a member of the clergy wants to join Savannah Faith, and they have those types of things, we can connect them to, again, these folks are doing it well, and again, they've offered their support in helping other people do it well, get started. Again, there are various platforms. I mean, from those where you can call in and listen to like a conference call situation, to those who do it on Facebook, or those who do it on YouTube, those who do it inside, those who do drive-in services. So again, there are so many variations, and I think the great part about it is that it's a menu of choices that faith-based institutions can use to suit their congregation. It's not a one-size-fit-all situation. So, you find what works for you and make it work.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, again, I want to thank these faith leaders so much for their time, their effort, and their energy. There is so much that we will be able to do together. And I'm just convinced, and I'm not preaching without a license here, but I think the reality is that I believe that sometimes God puts a pause on things when we become too busy to remind us. And this remind for us is a reset that God is bigger than any building. God was never contained in a building. It was never contained to a synagogue or to a mosque or to a church or to a temple. That ultimately the congregation is the people. And so the fact was that although we can't enter the churches, the congregations are still thriving and still surviving in the midst of all of this madness. So for us, we continue to be a very strong community of faith. Savannah has been since 1733. We will continue to be. We will make it through this. We will make it through this through strategic partnerships, through working together, but most importantly, by keeping the faith and following the science. So thank you all so much. And again, thank all of you. Pastor Roberson, again, thank you. We go back to work. Thank you.